Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Rick, and thank you very much for being here this morning. We love you, and we're here for you no matter what the circumstances are. This morning's title is The Universe Always Has a Plan. And the spiritual truth comes from we can be so sure that every detail in our lives is worked into something good. Every detail in our lives is worked into something good. Now, that's a hard one. So Emma Curtis Hopkins put it this way. She says, "My good is my God, and my God is life, truth, love, substance, intelligence. It is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-present everywhere." Wherever we are, God is. I hope that many of you have seen the movie Harriet, about Harriet Tubman, an amazing woman born around 1822 and died around 1913. We don't really know the exact year of her birth because she was born in slavery. But she was abolitionist. She wanted to abolish slavery. She was a political activist for women's suffrage, and she was lovingly called Moses. Matt Kahn, in the book, The Universe Has a Plan, 10 Golden Rules for Letting Go, he writes, "While I had glimpses throughout my life of where I was headed, I was always being guided by an intuitive force of inner knowing, an unexplainable will of clarity that knew exactly what needed to be known." Matt gives us 10 keys to let go. To let go of what? The struggle, the stress that I am on my own, the resentment of the past, and the anxiety of the future. He says, you really have done nothing wrong. 2, anyone who blames you just isn't happy. Being thankful gets us through the hardships. Feeling better helps heal everyone. Personal well-being are signals of the potential within us all. And number 6, everything changes for the better. And I have edited this to say, if you can just wait. 7, for emotional freedom, it's okay to dislike. Projecting anger drains you of your energy. Love is your personal liberator. And 10, the universe always has a plan. See, I have told you before that I love overcomer stories. Last time I was here, I talked about the African-American woman, Madam C.J. Walker, born in 1867 and died a millionaire. She supported women's independence. She created a factory for African-Americans to work and live independently in the 1800s. See, I believe the people who really hear me, are the people who have overcome or who need some encouragement to embrace the transformation as it occurs. When God turns our scars into stars. God turns our scars into stars. See, all together, we are a constellation. See, a constellation is a recognizable cluster of stars. And if you know us, you know that God has changed our scars into stars. See, a scar starts out as a wound. And the healing process, it actually makes a scar. See, our scars are a reminder of our healing. Our scars are transformed. And as they are transformed, this is the resurrected life. Not even death separates us from God. Our scar moves us into the way of the prophet. We all have a story of how our scars became stars. A resurrected life is the wounds in life that are healed or are healing. Healing, but the scars remain. The same skin that repairs the wound can leave a scar. The same problem that we have will also be the fulfillment of our purpose. A scar is a reminder from just where we have come from, a reminder that a transformation has occurred. A star, when the light of the infinite intelligence shines through us. God, Spirit, Source, call it what you will, but remember this, it's Christ or our essence in you, which is our hope of glory. The sacred text says this: the mystery has been kept in the dark for a long time, and now it is out in the open. God wanted everyone to know the rich and glorious secret inside and out, regardless of their background, regardless of their religious standing. The mystery, in a nutshell, is just this: Christ is in you, so therefore you can look forward to sharing in God's glory. See, you are the anointed, a scar that has become a star, is light in the darkness. See, our very nature, the spirit soul of who we are, that is whole, perfect, and complete. I am fascinated when people ask me about what we believe, that they always focus on, and I am whole, or you are whole, perfect, and complete. And they give me all the reasons why they cannot be whole, perfect, and complete. I met a minister recently, a very lovely woman, and I enjoyed talking with her. And she said, but Rick, I'm always a sinner. I said, okay, you can be. But don't you want to feel that you are not broken? Why can't you accept the truth until you feel it? See, it may take some time to overcome the idea of brokenness, because many of us have practiced it for many years. But it is the truth. There is some reason that you feel that you need to argue with the idea of being broken, because it is the argument that we have on the inside. The light within is trying to bring you into the great light, the Christ nature that shines through each one of us. See, I am not one of those people who believes that we change into something that isn't recognizable. Each person is valuable in the wavelength, in the spectrum of the light of God. Light is not a single color. It is a spectrum. Look around who you're with. This spectrum makes up the light of the world. Harriet was born in slavery, and her name was Arminita. But she changed her name to identify with her freedom. But something inside her consciousness said, it's time for a change. Her scars were calling her to change regardless of her circumstances. Beyond her circumstances, she saw freedom. And the prophet sees from cause. The prophet sees from the position of God. The prophet comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable. Harriet Tubman not only saw herself free, she had been beaten so often as a child that she had a traumatic head injury. It caused dizziness and pain and periods of excessive sleep. These are scars. But she saw her family and other slaves free. Nothing stopped this woman from filling her role in the plan of God. See, I understand Harriet as a prophet. The prophet, a seer, not a fortune teller. Prophets are not fortune tellers or people who predict the future. They are spokespersons for God that sees the outcome. They are given spiritual insight. They see from causes. The history of prophets in Israel was not to predict the coming of Jesus. I'm sorry. The prophets called religious and political leaders to return to the heart of God. They called for social justice. It wasn't worship and right believing that God was concerned about. It was, and it is, social justice that is the heart of God. In the time the land was owned by the top 10% in Israel, public and temple taxes had increased, and they were providing less and less support to the people. In fact, the Old Testament prophets and Jesus accused the priests of stealing women's money, widows' money, because women could not inherit the land. So the priests were supposed to hold the land in trust and care for the widows and the children. But the leaders took the money and impoverished the women, and they failed to care for widows and orphans. When the people asked the prophets how much sacrifice and how much worship God wanted, the prophet said, God has told you, human one, what is good and what God requires of you, that you do justice, embrace compassion, and walk humbly before God. The prophet sees God against all the evidence. Can you see the light of God beyond the evidence? Ernest Holmes said, there is always a prophet in our own mind that gives us hope, comfort, and promise in knowledge that life can never destroy itself. The prophet is in our own soul, which eternally proclaims to us God's anointed, even though we may be lost in the wilderness of false concepts. Have we learned anything recently? I would have to say that we have learned just how fragile we are. Our society is fragile. A virus, by definition, cannot reproduce itself. A virus only has RNA, no DNA. It cannot reproduce. Therefore, it is unable to replicate. And that's why antibiotics don't work. However, the RNA enters cells and makes the cell produce the virus. Think of what we say. A condition has no life in itself. We teach conditions have no power, but it does not mean that there will not be damage and suffering. I wonder if the universe, if Mother Nature is our new prophet. And I wonder if she's PO'd, my new theological term. I wonder if the universe is trying to show us how everything is interconnected, that we are all just one. See, some deny that we are having a negative impact on the environment. Those who reject everything that isn't godness. But now that everyone is home but me, because I work at the hospital, the air has cleaned up over Sacramento and LA. Satellites notice that city air has cleared up. The water is cleared. Fish have returned to the waters of Venice. And those who do not believe that we are one have to deal with the fact that COVID-19 impacts everyone, just like HIV, opiate abuse, crack abuse, heroin, poverty, unemployment, one paycheck from being in the street. All of your bad kids, all of our bad kids are at home. And I love this. Your own kids are getting on your nerves. What about the poor teachers who have to deal with our bad children all the time? You can't wait till they go back to school to worry somebody else. So for those who are worried about immigration and undocumented Americans and those people, it's really not your concern right now, is it? Those who deny that economic and health inequity have to recognize that impact of the illness is greater on people without health insurance. People with chronic health issues, and most insurances won't even support them adequately. Maybe it's not a good thing to plan to pack us all in a plane like sardines to increase profits. Maybe it's not a good idea to reduce access to public transit and pack us into a bus or a subway. And measure the effectiveness by how many poor people we can put together for the profits of a few. Maybe it's not a good idea to send all jobs offshore to areas where people can't make a living wage. Maybe not keeping the environment clean, that there's trash on the street and poor sanitation is not a good idea. Maybe the salad bar and the self-serve food is not a good idea. But I could have told you that before COVID-19 because it is two of my pet peeves. There is nothing nastier than looking at a salad bar. Maybe shaking hands is not a good idea. Maybe namaste. Recognizing the God that is in everyone is better than judging an individual based on the firmness of a handshake. Handshakes are a killer, baby. They carry germs. For many of us who believe that pleasure is just only for a few individuals, and that's all that's important, all we have to recognize that we have just become one people trying to hide and run away from something we cannot see. Conditions can cause harm until you learn to believe in, to hold to embody and embrace the divine truth. That God is love, and right in the center of love is a divine plan of God. Ernest Holmes says the divine plan refers to the nature of the divine being. God is love, and the divine plan is love. The creative spirit projects its own nature into our nature as a full expression of divine love. So just like the virus, our doubts and unbelief, anything other than principle or truth of God has no life in itself. Did you have a plan? I had reservations for Las Vegas. I was going to stay at the Venetian. I had tickets for Cirque du Soleil. And I received emails that it was all canceled. What? I don't even have to call and cancel? I didn't even have to call. But my plans were canceled. Have your plans changed? Been redirected? Are there new obstacles? What about a new barrier? Something that you have to overcome? The spiritual truth is God is working it into something good. Do you believe what is happening today will work into something good? Yes. There is an old term, and it's called providence. Providence is the underlying principle of creation. That everything works together for good and is held together by God. Have you asked, was I wrong? Remember that unconditional love holds the plan together and will make it work for good. It's how those scars become stars. The image of providence is seeing from the beginning the total fulfillment. See, end is a word that we use, and it's not a very good word. It's only from our perspective. Because everywhere that we see an end, God sees the beginning. Has COVID changed your plan? Something you cannot see now has us living in a post-apocalyptic movie. Stay at home, cover your face, wash your hands, stay 6 feet away, and follow the errors in the market so that the aisles are one way. See, you choose your word for God. It could be love, light, peace, mother, father. It's your definition of God that creates your possibility and also defines your limitation. See, I believe the plan of God is providence, that it's not the details of our lives, that it's the result of our lives. Harriet saw her family and other slaves as free. Scars into stars. She escaped and she saved others. Once she escaped, from Maryland to Pennsylvania a free state. Now, there's a history. Pennsylvania, the state of brotherly love, was started by William Penn. William Penn and the Quakers, the Religious Society of Friends, started a free state. So if you got to the free state, they did not have slavery. It was the Quakers that were the major abolitionists in America. They were also the ones who advocated educating children with tax dollars. Previously, it was a function of the church. There was no public education before the Unitarian Universalists and the Quakers advocated. They advocated for human treatment of prisoners and for care for the mentally ill. And the Quakers were a central entrepreneur group in the Industrial Revolution. We owe a whole lot of our being civilized to the Quakers and the Unitarian Universalists with their very deep spirituality, but clear about social justice. Now, many of us have not heard about the Underground Railroad. Growing up in Detroit, which is a bridge and a tunnel to Canada, Detroit is proud of Second Baptist Church. Second Baptist Church is downtown, and it was a part of the Underground Railroad. Now, the Underground Railroad is not a subway. It is a series of safe houses and churches that aided slaves to freedom. Harriet changed the dynamic of the Underground Railroad. The railroad went in one direction. It either went to Canada or to Florida. And it was the free slaves and other white people and churches that facilitated the escape. At the time, Florida was not a part of the U.S. It was a part of Spain, and it was free of slavery too. See, it is believed that the U.S. purchased Florida to prevent access to Mexico from the slaves. Harriet had to travel 100 miles from Pennsylvania to Maryland. And Harriet turned this one-way railroad into a two-way, because Harriet returned 13 times, 13 return trips, and rescued 70 slaves using the Underground Railroad, and never lost a passenger. See, just like life, as soon as she started to go back to Maryland to liberate others, there was a new opposition. Are you familiar with following the inner voice and find yourself with a new challenge? See, I think life is just that way. See, once we meet the challenge, we come to some idea that we are totally doing this thing on our own, in our human power. And it's just for us, because we're so good at what we do. Then a new challenge presents itself, and God, it makes us humble, reminding us that we do not fulfill the plan of God on our own and on our own power. And it's not just for ourselves. It is for everyone. A law was passed that allowed slave owners to cross state lines to collect their property. This included the free slaves that were living in Pennsylvania. The challenge of who has authority over the states has always existed. The law exerted authority over the government of the states. That's a scar. But the same precedent was used to abolish slavery. That's the star. God working it for good. Can you believe that what we are going through right now will work for good? Now, Harriet had not to travel 100 miles. She had to travel 600 miles. An African-American woman, born in slavery, fugitive herself, she risked being caught and being returned to her master because the inner voice in her said, "Do not be afraid, because I am with you." And guess what? That's all and that's all that we need, that God is with us. That is all we need. The prophet within is an inner voice of God that leads us to transform our scars into stars. Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of the greatest people I've ever read, talks about change and transformation. She says, all your affairs as you now look at them represent your former way of thinking. They are held together by the glue of your former ideas. Now, if you withdraw the glue, what do you expect? You can expect a change for the better. Harriet married a free man, and she escaped without him for his benefit. When she returned, he had remarried and had a child on the way. Some of her family refused to join her. Her family was threatened, and they were the ones that revealed that Moses was not a man. It was actually Harriet, an escaped slave. Now there's a price on her head, and everyone told her that she was an African-American woman, an escaped slave, physically abused, suffering from bad health, at risk to the people who helped her if she were caught, and a national government that changed laws to help catch her. But that could not stop this woman. The new challenge in her life, the impossible situation that appears to be the thing that will take her out, the new impossible challenge is the place where God's plan is revealed in you. During the American Civil War, she was an armed scout, an African-American woman, slave, fought in the Union Army. She led a regiment in the Union Army. She was a spy for the Union Army and remained an activist for women's suffrage. She helped start a home, which was a place for aged people where she ended up living the rest of her life. And so now you are thinking that you are going to give up. Listen, my beloved, the new challenge in your life, the impossible situation that appears to be the thing that will take you out, the new impossible challenge in your life is there for God's plan to be revealed in you. I cannot say, don't be afraid. But I can say this. We must continue our place in the plan of God. And we just have to do it afraid. Why? Because we are just not doing it on our own. We are all in the plan of God, and the love of God holds all of this plan together. And so it is.